All right, everyone can hear me okay? Perfect. Thank you all for coming. This is really appreciated on my behalf. I know you guys have a lot to do. So I'd like to just take a hot second to just thank a few people in truly Canadian fashion. I will start with kindness. So first and foremost, I do want to thank Diego and ownership for this opportunity, the trust that they've given me, and also just going through the process with them helped me a lot in terms of clarity in the vision and what I know we can achieve here. So a really big thanks to them and the process. Second thing is my family. I think you guys will get to know me, hopefully, over the next little bit. They are the most important thing to me, and I could not do this without them, and that includes my wife's family, extended family, everybody. It's been a really, really great process having them over the years, supportive. They've been at big games, also really sad games, and so as you guys can probably imagine, it's a tough business, and always having a group of people like that to support you, it means a lot. So that's clear. The last family member, obviously, is my wife. Hopefully you'll get to know her as well. I don't think I could be in this position without someone like her. And I also don't think there's enough time in a press conference to list all the things that she has done to help me. Excuse me if I get a little bit emotional, but it's truly something important to me to have a teammate that I can go home to, that understands the challenges in the business and who can listen and provide support like she did, and she will. And I know you guys have a really special person coming to your city, and we're very excited for that when we do get that all settled. That's another topic for another day. And then at the end of this, in terms of the sporting side and in terms of my process, I do want to thank two very important leaders that I had. The first being Ali Curtis, who's just been promoted to a great position at MLS. I did only work with Ali for a year in Toronto, but his support over the last 6-7 years has not gone unnoticed, and I think it would be a big miss to not mention him today. And then the second one is, someone I worked with for probably 10 years plus, Tim Bezbachenko. His guidance, leadership, his support, his feedback, sometimes constructive criticism has made me a really, really great person. Obviously, someone capable to lead this next project, but most importantly, he's a great friend and someone that I truly value. So I think it's very important to recognize those who've helped get you somewhere. Okay, who am I? That's a tough thing, again, for a Canadian to speak about, but I am a product of my environment. I think you guys know how long I've been in the business, close to 20 years next year, working in all departments. Across that, I have worked with, I think, 4 ownership groups, 5 different sporting directors of some sort, hundreds and hundreds of players, 12 head coaches, multiple second-team coaches, and then a lot of different people within the league and outside. I have been to 5 MLS Cup finals, being part of a winning team in 3 of those. I've been to 2 Champions League finals, unfortunately losing those. And I say that not to brag or gloat, but I say that as an understanding of what you can learn from those opportunities and what you can learn in those moments. And I think that is what I'm bringing here. And with that, a very large network of people now throughout the world that I have been in contact with, have worked with, have signed contracts with. I think that will provide the necessary next steps for what we need to do here in the short term and the long term. Overall, I just want to talk quickly about next steps. I'm sure someone will ask, but I think it's very important so you guys know where we're at today. First and foremost, I just got here, so I think it's very important to understand we're going to have an assessment period. That will be very quick, but done to the best of my ability. It will be, clearly looking at the roster, talking to all the staff, and I've already begun that over the last couple days, and making sure I have a real firm understanding about what we have here internally. And then we will start to set a shared vision and direction going forward that will incorporate all of the people I just spoke about. Making sure from that we're going to set new standards for high performance within the group, how we operate, communicate, and how we look at new decisions being made moving forward. We will then obviously be as transparent as possible with you, the media, our fans, our stakeholders about the direction we're going in, so you can follow along and obviously check that along the way. We're going to build a squad to meet standards that I see as a winning kind of formula. I think it's very important to understand that in squad building, the right pieces are not always available. I think you imagine you can just go out and get what you need, and they're perfect characters and they fit everything the coach needs. That is not always the case. So please bear with me while we make sure we get the right people into the club. And then last but not least, achieve success. It's very clear that through this process, that is an important part of what the fans are looking for. I think people are knowledgeable enough to see progress, and that's what I hope we can show right away. But I'm here to win. I am a winner, and I'm very excited for the city and the rest of the fans to be part of that process as well, because there is nothing better than winning. I can tell you this right now. It is the best feeling, and I am very excited for that to happen here in St. Louis. So thank you.
Thanks, Corey. We'll start with Tom.
Hi, Corey.
Hello.
Hi, Tom Timmerman from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. What's your wife's name?
My wife's name is Jamie.
Jamie?
Yes.
J-A-M-I-E?
J-A-I-M-E.
J-A-I-M-E.
Yeah.
Just wanted to be able not to refer just as your wife.
Thank you. And she would like that too.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
How big of a challenge is this? How much work needs to be done for this team that has missed the playoffs now 2 years in a row to get them, and how quickly can it be done?
Yeah, that will be in the assessment phase, but I will tell you that we are, in the short term, going to need to do a few things to become more competitive. I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anyone. There is clearly some opportunities to improve the overall group. We will do that immediately. We have a few different opportunities through the MLS mechanisms coming up that you're probably aware of in terms of re-entry drafts, free agencies, and super drafts. So those will be looked at as quickly as possible from a add as quickly as possible kind of way of doing things. And then from there, we need to set a lot of things in the structure long term. So you're talking about real big decisions need to be made on structure for the larger decisions from a MLS mechanism, your TAM players, your DPs. That will take a little bit longer to make informed decisions on those. And I could see those taking, I don't want to put any timelines on anything, but those will be the things that I'll be working towards into the new season for sure, as we look for a longer-term, sustainable, and competitive environment here.
How do you feel about DPs? This is a club that has not really plunged into the DP market, but do you feel the resources are there that you can go out and get what you want and to add for the next year a DP?
Yeah, for sure. I think, just in my experiences, we need to be very cautious about just getting a DP or getting the right DP. I'm sure people will tell you that. And in terms of what that looks like, a lot of work needs to be done behind the scenes to ensure that we do have a good strike rate on those players. So I am confident that there is a desire to win in terms of the ambition of ownership, and they are committed to resourcing that how we see fit. So I will get into those discussions further in terms of setting budgets and looking at that, but I don't see that as being something that is going to be prohibitive in terms of my plan. I think it's about providing a plan that makes sense, that is supported by all the different things when you are looking for additional funds. I think you need to do your job to create, I'd say, some sort of confidence in that process. And then from there, I see a huge desire to be a part of that global transfer market and look for the right player for St. Louis, for sure.
We'll go to Justin.
Hi, Corey. Justin Horniker, St. Louis Magazine. As you kind of look past to some of your past work in Toronto and Columbus, a lot of that is just building the foundation through the player pathway. That's something that this club has wanted to do very well. If you look back to those successes, is there anything that you would point to as wanting to bring from how you set up those organizations to here that maybe hasn't been done or maybe that you think can be done better?
Yeah, as I'm still trying to figure out what's been going on from a deeper level, I think just high level, just making sure that all the different parts of the club are speaking to each other. That is the easiest way for me to say when I'm taking a decision to trade for, acquire a player, that we've done all the work internal to project out when the pathway is set for the next player in that position, that we're not blocking that player. And then deeper than that, we need to do a good job at benchmarking across the club, highlighting what great is, what makes an MLS player in the pathway. And I'm confident in the group right now, from what I've heard, that they're doing a good job. But in my experience, there is a possibility that a non-efficient pathway is one that simply just needs to be brought together through communication and through working with each other a little bit more formally. So I don't think that's hard. The hard part is when you are missing those conversations, when you are not considering what you might have internally, and I think that is where we just need to create some alignment. But I'm very excited about that pathway and being a big part of our success in the future.
Yeah, and as you think of your interview process and looking elsewhere, was that something that drove you to this project, of just knowing that some of those pieces might have been in place?
For sure. Every project is going to be different. And so there's not, I never thought about, I've done it somewhere, I'm going to do everything the same here. I'm very mindful now, after my experiences, that is not a good way to start your job. And so, yes, from what I've heard, the pathway and what I've seen clearly at the higher levels is a strong pathway with good success. What I've heard, outside of that, is that the player pool is strong. It's a deeply knowledgeable soccer city, with roots, far beyond, my date of birth. And so I think that means we have a real good opportunity to continue to grow that and to continue to provide the opportunity for our players to achieve their goals. So I simply, we'll get into more of that, but I'm very excited about the opportunity to bring more players from here into the first team, for sure.
We'll go to Jen Sees, then Matt Baker.
Hi, Corey. Jen Cease with
Hi
KMOX Radio. You said very fairly that you can't possibly, the players that you might want to have aren't just easily available. But if you did in a perfect world have a person kind of profile player that you like to look for, is there anything in particular in building a roster, qualities of soccer players that you tend to be drawn to?
Yeah, I hate to give like a highly political answer, but I don't want to sit here and start to list those out until we finalize some of the bigger pictures. So how I would maybe come back to do that at a later date would be to first ensure we set the vision of how this club wants to play. That could be very different across many different clubs, and that could mean ideal players are very different for each club. So first, that will be a major next step for me in terms of getting that aligned from top and then kind of working down from that. The second thing is going to be how the coach wants to play. Obviously, we have a process that's coming up that is going to need to be worked on in terms of candidates and interviews, and so that will help guide also what is needed. On my end, I think from a sporting leadership side, it's to give the coach all the necessary tools for him to be as good as he can as a coach, and to not limit the tactical or technical things that he sees in his vision by kind of pigeonholing some of the profiles. So simply players who are quite flexible tactically, technically, capable physically, and obviously who fit the culture that we have here, not only in the club but in the city, I think is the easiest way to define what I'm going to do next.
Fair enough. A quick follow-up, because I can mention a specific player because we know Roman Berkey is going to stay with the club.
Yes.
How do you feel about building a roster in front of who we definitely in this room consider the best goalkeeper in the league?
Yes, I think for me, I am a person who really would like to harp on or to, preach stability in my time as a leader. So having someone in that position with the history, with the performances, with the character, I'm happy that that's not another piece that I need to go out and look for. And I'm very confident as we kind of develop the squad that he will be someone that's crucial to our success for sure.
Matt?
Hi, Corey. Matt Baker with Flyover Footy podcast.
Hi.
I want to talk about your time with Montreal real quick.
Sure.
You've gone through a lot of successes with Toronto and Columbus, and they're some of the best in the league. Your time with Montreal was very short. Could you describe to us what your role was with Montreal? Because it seemed like it evolved a little bit, and you didn't make very many press conference appearances, very many appearances to the media. Can you talk a little bit about what your evolving role was with Montreal?
Yeah, sure. I think first and foremost, for the role itself, I think it's clear I came in as a consultant, and that moved into a more permanent role there. The second thing that is clear to kind of explain is the Montreal setup was very much a council in terms of decision making, and I sat on that council. So that was the role, and that's what kind of my day-to-day looked like, was providing feedback, providing expertise or any sort of knowledge in any area that the council needed to, and then as a group we make a decision. So that's what the setup was. As far as maybe a follow-up question you might have, I will not sit and speak badly about any of my experiences, and I think I am truly grateful for the opportunity that the Saputo family provided me. Their history and investment in that city is obviously pretty clear, what they've done to develop the game in Canada. As a Canadian, I'm greatly thankful for that because it's grown the game. And so I see that as maybe a difficult time for me in terms of their vision for wanting to do things in a different way. But I saw it as a really great moment for me to learn, and it really helped me prepare for my opportunity here in terms of really trying to think about establishing a clear vision, refining some of those processes that maybe didn't work so great when I was there. And I can't thank them enough for that opportunity. And to the fans there who never heard from me, they should be pretty excited about what's next. Tactically, what was able to be done with the council to the roster sets them up in a really good way for this offseason. And so I'm proud of the work that we did together, and I'm very excited for the fans to see what Luca and Simone and Gabriel can do next.
Without going too deep into the council structure, just as you come to St. Louis, would you compare this structure that St. Louis has more to what you experienced in, or what you expect the structure to be, to what you experienced in Columbus and Toronto?
Yes. Yes. So that's very important in terms of where I sit. I think it's clear that there is a large organization that also is part of this process. And I think people get caught up a lot in who does what. I see my role as clearly someone who is going to recommend to, at the end of the day, we all have bosses. I don't think you will ever get away from that until you're truly, free of any decision making from a business standpoint. You're either you're going to speak to shareholders, you're going to speak to somebody to make a decision. So I just want to be very clear. I am entrusted here to make the recommendations. I am here to provide all of the sporting, recommendation decisions on all of the sporting department. But I work for a great company that is going to also be part of that process. And so that includes obviously Diego and leadership, but that is very normal and that's what I'm used to. And so I think what you guys will see in the next years, months, whatever, is that it's not always going to be about me making a decision anyhow. I'd like to introduce you at some point to the other people as part of the process. I think the way in which we see decisions made in the sporting side is often too simplistic, and I'm happy to be the face and to speak about that, but there are so many other people that are part of that need to be recognized, and I think for the fans, I'm very excited at some point to dive deeper in how those processes work. So hopefully that answers your question, but this is very much the same kind of setup that we had in Columbus, and certainly in terms of the sports and entertainment behemoth with Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, it's very similar to a certain extent with the board, with leadership, with all of the things that we have here. And I'm very excited to work that way. It is a great way, despite maybe what people think on the outside.
It was reported recently that you provided a 120-page report or presentation as part of your interview for this position. Is there any insight you could give us into what that contained? And in the sense of, you said you have a lot of discussions to have. It seems like you've done your homework on this organization. And is there anything you could offer us insight into maybe some of your ideas that contain for the future?
No, I think that and I think it's very important to clarify the process. I think the purpose of something like that was to go through every part of the sporting structure, provide either examples, provide a framework around how it would work, provide an understanding of the level of detail that's required under my kind of guidance as a sporting leader, and to see if that matched what ownership was looking for. Clearly, it was aligned with what they're looking for when it comes to details, when it comes to even some of the things they weren't thinking about. But it's not to say that it was some crazy document or anything, but if you just list out all the processes within a sporting org, I tried to address all of those to be as thorough as possible. It was not something deeper than, that, next steps, how we work. But after that will be something a little bit more detailed in terms of the sporting vision, and the real meat of what I'm going to try to do will be provided the next time. It will not be 120 pages, though. Yeah.
We'll go to Brendan Weezy, then Bill McDermott.
Corey, Brendan Weezy, KTRS Radio. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah.
You may still be in the preliminary stages of this, but what in the infrastructure with the club do you see that needs changing, and are there things that you'd like to see maybe remain the same, again, from just the early stages of what you've seen so far?
Yeah. High level, I think just based on some high level assessments, we need to improve probably maybe some of the expertise in the sporting leadership. Again, I will harp on it. I am one person. I am not going to change everything by myself. I'm not going to be able to make this a powerhouse by myself. And so I think we could really use some additions in that space. The second thing is to kind of redefine or relook at how we're scouting players. There's probably a gap there. Currently, we do have people on staff. I think my job will be to support them and to try to create a scouting process that can look at, domestic, international, and then also incorporate the internal side that I was speaking about, and find a way that we can have it talk to each other. So those would be the two easy ones. Bigger than that, I think we need to look at how we use data in this day and age. I am someone who relies on it to a certain extent to help communicate across the traditional and then the non-traditional way of scouting or squad build or trends or anything like that. So I think, in terms of using data, I would use the word data informed, making sure we are using it, making sure it's at the right place of the process, and then using it to make our traditional scouting and our other processes better. And so having the traditional side, I guess, the art and the science of scouting speak to the data, and have the data speak to the traditional scouting is how I see a working kind of process going, and I've seen that work really well in the past. So those would be the key areas. After that, it's only day 3.5 since I've been here. I do believe we have some really good people in-house. It's just about, elevating, their ideas, creating it, a process that they're part of, and trying to align that in terms of how we communicate with each other. But those are maybe not so exciting for you guys, but that's something that I think is very important in a winning culture.
Bill?
Hi, Corey. Bill McDermott. How do I say this? Miscellaneous outlets. Welcome to St. Louis.
Thank you. Okay.
When you look, and you touched upon the job description of a head coach, and when you get into that overall process, what would you consider more important? Analytics, analyzing teams in the future, looking at tape, tactics, things of that nature, or management of personalities? What would you consider more important for a coach?
Yeah, it's a very good question. The way that I look at it, and the way that, as a group we've had some really good success in the past, is first, very, very important to get this clear. They have to be a good person. And I think the character of that person is going to be paramount to moving past any first stage of what we're doing. I will be very firm on that, because for you guys, maybe you know or don't know, it is going to be a person I'm going to be working with most hours of the day, and that our club is going to be working with many hours of the day. And so if you do not have someone who is going to have high character and be a good person, I think we stop the process there. From that, we will then start to look at our club and the vision I spoke about of what we're trying to do and where they fit into that. And I think that is going to be the next stage of defining the profile. And so what I mean by that, some of the things you spoke about. So how do they use, film? How do they communicate with the players? How do they break down the match reports? How comfortable are they using some form of data? And do they feel like they are able to sit with a group and work collaboratively? Or are they a person who needs to be by themselves and we just have to cater to them? I think I'm looking for the first version of what I'm explaining. And then we get into the X's and O's and the coaching, but we do not go past those first two stages if it's not right. And I think that will be very important in this process to make clear that we are going to get those first two right before we go on the last one. And then you get into all the other fun stuff that you guys will for sure ask about after every game. They will be very capable at that, but they will not be afforded the opportunity unless they hit the first two.
We'll go to Drew, then Jeremy, then Matt.
Drew Young, KMOX Youth Media. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So how long was the hiring process for you, and what did you learn about the team so far?
Yeah, I think the hiring process for me took almost a couple of months. There was some periods that were slower. There's some periods that were faster. So overall, I think it took about a couple of months. What I learned, I think when I started the process and maybe the sentiment at the time was like the team was not so great, that was not my opinion, but that's kind of what I had heard and had felt, just as an outsider. What I learned is there are a lot of really good pieces here. I think you guys saw the improvement in the squad. There are some quality players on the team, and what I think is we just need to provide the next level of structure and clarity in terms of roles. There needs to be a little bit better work done on how they all work together. And I think that's very important for me as well when recruiting is do the pieces complement each other or not? And then finally, I think there are, questions about how we want to play. And so once that's determined, that can change my opinion on kind of if the players are right or wrong for this group. So I won't get into that too much, but that is certainly what I learned. And then finally what I learned is I've never seen a team with 40-plus shots on goal not get a result. And so what I learned is it's possible, and I was very excited about that as someone on the sporting side because that's not normal. So there are some good signs there, but there's also some clear indicators that we need to improve.
And then in your roster building experience, what's your preferred mechanism of acquiring players? Is it the draft, building from the second team, summer transfer window?
Yeah, all of them. So this is a great question, but if you are going to consistently compete for trophies, you need to do a good job at all of them. And I think that allows you flexibility to change your, tactical side if needed. That allows you flexibility year to year to add the right pieces to make a push. And so from a squad building standpoint, I think it's important that we have to set up a structure that can maximize all those mechanisms. And that's certainly something that I've learned over the years.
We'll go to Jeremy, then Matt, then Corey.
Hi, Corey.
Hi.
Jeremy Clements from STL Soccer News. Corey, welcome to St. Louis.
This Jeremy, but you can go ahead.
In the history of the club, we've been a high-pressing team in terms of identity. Do you see the identity of the club changing now that you've taken control of the sporting department at all?
That's kind of step two for me. After day 3, that's something that we're going to define and clearly communicate. I think there will always be parts of the DNA of the club that remain the same, for sure. I think that is more down to things that have been done in the past, and that work seemed pretty comprehensive. And so if you look at wanting to be on the front foot, if you look at, excitement for the fans, if you look at a lot of the, grit and determination that people want to see from the players, I don't see that changing, and I think that is just smart kind of roster building and smart soccer in some ways. How we manage to use that throughout the week to week and whatnot will be up to the coach. And so we will have a clear vision specifically of what that looks like, hopefully very soon. I'm working on that now with Diego and the rest of the leadership, but we will communicate that as soon as possible, and then from there, I think that will create clarity in terms of what we're looking for from a head coach as well.
Corey, hi, I'm Jeremy Goodwin
Other
from
Jeremy, hello.
St. Louis
Yeah,
Public
nice to
Radio.
meet you.
This is a very young organization that it's about to have its third coach in about a year and a half, a new sporting director. You're replacing the guy who did a lot to really build the infrastructure of the whole organization.
Yeah.
What role might more stability in the upper ranks of the organization play in the club's short and long-term prospects?
Yes, and sorry, I should actually thank Lutz for the work he did on the foundation. As I mentioned, all the good pieces. I can't say enough about the work that was done to get the squad here. But it's normal in a cycle of a team that you have to switch to maybe a different type of squad building, and certainly I have seen that the stability can allow you to add the quality pieces in a much easier way. If you're constantly changing your squad year after year, you're clearly up against something, whether it's the salary cap, whether it's the assets you have to improve. And I think if you can provide the stability of the foundation of the squad, your core, and what that looks like, then you start looking at adding pieces, maybe 1 to 2 in the offseason, and that's where you can really grow as an organization. So I am someone who believes in that. That stability is going to take a little bit of time as we assess and try to, shore up some of the deficiencies in the squad. But from there, that stability will create kind of the foundation for me to then really hone in on what we need. So short term, we're going to try to be as competitive as quickly as possible. But I might take some short-term decisions that help us do that, but won't saddle us long-term while we continue to evolve this process. Hopefully that clears it up.
Are you expecting to bring in anyone else into the front office that you may have worked with in the past or that sort of thing?
Not necessarily someone in mind that I've worked with. What you will find out is I've worked with a lot of people, so it's possible that someone or a group of people might join us that I have worked with in the past, but I will go back to the process. And I think that, whether it's the coach or hiring anyone, I will run a thorough process that is clear to everybody involved, that there will be no favors given, and that the right candidates will be brought in here because they're the best candidates.
We'll go to Corey, then finish with Joey.
Hey, Corey. Corey Miller from Channel 5
Great
here in
name.
St. Louis.
Great
yeah,
name.
I know, right?
Yeah. How old are you?
30.
Oh, God, that's interesting. I feel like it's more of an 80s thing, but
Yeah,
that's okay.
we're still out here.
Okay.
You touched on this a little bit with Tom's initial question, but, if talking directly to the fans, if they're watching tonight on our sportscast or right now on the live stream, seeing your passion for winning, you spoke about it. Fans here have been without winning soccer for a little bit. What would you tell them directly about just your drive to make a winning product and that it might be a process?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I can answer that by telling you more about me, right? So the drive, the determination. I am a person who never stops thinking about how to do something better. It is a problem for me and my wife sometimes, but as a sporting leader, that's probably a good quality. And so I often lose sleep if things are not done in the right way or the best way. I'll give you an example away from the sporting side. I am someone who loves to cook. I love food. Anything that I get my hands on, I become quite obsessed with trying to find out how to do it in the best way. No offense, but I got to Columbus. I didn't, this is going to really hurt my reputation there, but I didn't feel like the pizza scene was so good, even though they said it was. So I bought a pizza oven. I learned how to make my own dough. I'm preparing my own toppings. This is who I am. And so to the fans, look, not everything is going to be perfect, but there is no bigger critic than myself. And I promise that I will be working on those decisions that might be seen as maybe the best ones all the time. I will not rest until we get this right. So hopefully that explains that to them. I will lose sleep over it. I will have, probably moments where I am struggling for the answer, but I will not stop thinking about how to make this team the best team in MLS, and then hopefully one day in North America.
Joey.
Hey, Corey, how you doing? Joey Zanaboni, team broadcaster, and I just want to finish out with a couple of questions. One, you were the first ever intern in the history of Toronto FC, so, what can you tell us about that experience, and what's your message to, all the interns, the folks who are just starting grinding in their career? Do you see yourself as as an inspirational or aspirational figure in that way?
But first of all, your beard is very intimidating. So
Thank you very much.
I've been working on this for quite some time, and it's not going very far. So
Keep working.
Great beard. That's not something that I think about too much, but it is something over the course of my career that I've tried my best to give back in that sense. Taking a minute to speak to any intern or someone starting out in the sports business that works with me. Going back to my university, I brought the MLS Cup back there, very proud of where I've come from and the program there. And speaking to the students there, I am always willing to help. I am a real believer in staff development. I have my own tree now, which I'm quite proud of in terms of people that I've hired and who've been promoted and who've gone on to great things. And so that is really an important part of who I am and something that won't change. So while I wouldn't say after this press conference that I would enjoy 400 messages on LinkedIn from people looking to get started, I will do my best to give back to that group of people as much as I can. And clearly I hope that there's another great story like me as well in the near future.
And coming from the outside, what have you heard about the St. Louis City fans and the atmosphere of the stadium and all those things?
Yeah. So I have only been here for the U.S. Jamaica game. And so, firsthand experience, I was very impressed with that. Now it's not St. Louis City, but it shows the passion of the fan base around here, which is very exciting. I also know that they're very knowledgeable. I am blown away by the amount of messages I received from people that I didn't know were from St. Louis or the surrounding area, saying they're from here and obviously very excited about that, and then following up with, expectations of fans and things like that. I will put